All right, hello teachers. If you are gearing up for the TKT, you know this is a big one. Understanding different teaching approaches, it's pretty much non-negotiable. So today, we're going to unpack it all and really demystify them. And look, this isn't just about passing an exam, it's about getting to the heart of why we do what we do in our classrooms every single day. So over the next few minutes, we're going to break down all the key ideas from Unit 15 in your coursebook. I want you to think of this as building a kind of mental map of all the different teaching methods out there. That way, no matter what kind of question the TKT throws at you, you'll be able to navigate it with total confidence.
So here's our game plan. First, we'll nail down what an approach actually is. Then we'll jump in our time machine and look at the old school methods before we watch the communicative revolution completely change the game. After that, we'll check out the modern teacher's toolkit. And then, we'll put it all to the test with some TKT-style questions. Let's do this.
Okay, so first things first. Let's start with the most fundamental question of all. What exactly is an approach? I mean, really, getting this right is absolutely the key to understanding everything else we're going to talk about today.
You know, you can think of an approach as a teaching philosophy. It's really just a set of beliefs that ends up shaping every single decision we make in the classroom. It's our answer to those really big questions like, what even is language and how do people actually learn it best?
And here's the key thing to get your head around. No single approach does it all. Each one picks something different to focus on, to prioritize. So is the main goal to have perfect grammar, or is it more about just getting your message across, even if you make a few mistakes? That choice, right there, is at the heart of every single approach. All right, let's step back in time a bit, because to really understand where we are now, we have to see where we've come from. These are the traditional, super teacher-centered methods that really laid the groundwork for everything that came after.
So in the beginning, you kind of had these two major camps battling it out. On one side, grammar translation treated language like it was some kind of ancient code you had to decipher using complex grammar rules. And then, as a direct reaction to that, you got audiolingualism, which basically said, no. Language is speech. Its whole goal was to drill correct habits into learners' brains through tons and tons of repetition. And this quote, it just perfectly sums up the vibe in the classroom for both of them. The teacher was the expert, the one with all the knowledge, and the student's job was, well, it was just to sit there and absorb it. But as you can probably guess, a massive change was just around the corner.
And this is where modern language teaching really kicks off. Teachers and thinkers started asking a totally new question. What is the point of knowing all the grammar rules in the world if you can't actually talk to anyone? This was the huge shift from learning about the language to learning to use the language, a total game changer. So presentation, practice, production, or PPP, was sort of like a bridge from the old world to the new one. It kept that familiar structure, right? The teacher presents, the students practice, but then it added that absolutely crucial final stage, production. For the first time, students were really asked to use the language for themselves. It was a huge first step towards real communication.
And then came the two heavyweights of the modern era. First, communicative language teaching, or CLT, which made interaction, real communication, the ultimate goal. Then, task-based learning, TBL, came along and just flipped the entire script. It said, let's give students a real-world task first, like planning a party, and just let them use whatever language they need to get it done. The grammar stuff, we can worry about that later.
And as you can see, this led to a massive transformation inside the classroom. The teacher went from being the sage on the stage, the expert at the front, to the guide on the side, someone who facilitates learning. And students, well, they were no longer just empty vessels waiting to be filled. They became active, engaged communicators. So that brings us to today. Now we have this incredible, rich, and varied toolkit to draw from. It's really less about these big competing philosophies and more about having specialized tools that you can pull out for specific teaching jobs. So, for example, with CLIL, you're not just teaching English, you're teaching, say, science in English. And then you have the Lexical Approach, where you focus on whole phrases and common word pairings, not just individual words. And with a functional approach, you build your lessons around what students need to actually do with the language, like how to apologize or how to make suggestions. So what's the big takeaway for you in your classroom? Well, the crucial point is that being a great teacher isn't about blindly following just one approach forever. It's about being a flexible,
thinking professional who can pick the right tool for the right students for the right lesson. It's all about finding that perfect balance. Okay, let's bring this all home. How is this actually going to show up on your TKT exam? Because it's one thing to know the theories, but it's really all about applying that knowledge to real, practical classroom scenarios. So here's what the examiners want to see. They want to know that you can look at a description of a lesson and say, ah, I know what's going on there. That's TBL, or that's clearly audiolingualism. They're going to test you on whether you can spot the difference between an activity that's all about perfect grammar versus one that's all about just getting a message across. Ready? Let's try a TKT-style question together. Imagine you see this on the exam. A teacher has students do a real-world task, and any mistakes are looked at after the task is done. Now, what are the key clues there? Task and errors addressed afterwards. What does that sound like to you? If you said task-based learning, you are spot on. Absolutely right. In TBL, the #1 goal is completing the task successfully. Analyzing the language? That's an important but secondary step that comes later. All right, round 2. How about this one? A teacher drills a sentence over and over with the class, and they correct every little pronunciation mistake instantly. The keywords here are drills and immediate correction. This should be ringing a bell from way back at the start of our explainer. Exactly. That is a textbook, classic example of audiolingualism. The whole point is to drill that pattern into the students' minds until it becomes a completely automatic habit, leaving absolutely no room for error. So if you only remember one thing from this entire unit, please let it be this. The entire history of our profession is basically one long journey. It's a journey away from seeing language as a boring set of rules to memorize and towards seeing it for what it truly is, a tool for real human communication. And there you have it. You now have a map of the philosophies that have shaped our profession. You know the tools in the toolkit, you know their history, and you know their purpose. As you keep preparing for the TKT, just remember that this stuff isn't just abstract theory. It's about understanding the choices you make in your classroom every single day. Good luck with your studies. You've got this.